Here we are. I'm here today with Catherine Neville, and I'm so excited to be playing her piece Dance next Sunday, June 20th, as part of my Beyond Bach series. It's a wonderful piece of music that she's written, and I'm so happy to perform it and get to know her writing. And so we're just here today to talk a little bit about Catherine and who she is as a musician and as a composer and the piece itself. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad
to
be.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So before we get into this particular piece that I'll be performing, do you want to just talk a little bit about how you got it started composing? As I understand it, you came to composing, at least formally, not too long ago, and you've been a performing musician for many years as a clarinetist. So if you could just talk a little bit about your process for how you got started with composing, what compelled you to switch gears a little bit, or if it's always been a part of your life, kind of give us a little intro.
All right. Well, as you mentioned, I have been a clarinetist for quite a long time, doing freelance and doing chamber music. And I've also been a teacher, a public school music teacher for just about 20 years now. So I've always kind of composed a little bit, but without really thinking of myself as a composer. So I enjoy improvising. I love to sit down at the piano and make up new sounds and put tunes together. But I always thought of composing as this thing that other people could do. But, it was this lofty aspiration that is just beyond mere mortals like you and me. So I finally came to the realization that I was actually composing this whole time when, after I had my daughter, I couldn't play the clarinet for a little while. I had to recover. So everything was very quiet. And in that quiet space, I found that the music was not inside of my clarinet. It was not anything external. It was very much internal to me, because as a musician, I'd always felt like I was bringing this external thing to other people through the clarinet, with the members of the chamber ensembles that I was in, or in a classroom singing with kids. It was always something external. And I finally started writing things down and just discovered that not everybody is living in this crazy musical that's going on in my head. So I started writing down all these songs, and I haven't been able to stop since then. And it's been about 6 years.
That is so cool. I love hearing that. And I feel like that's such a freeing experience that you've come to composing in that way. It's funny, I actually have conversations with my husband a lot, who's not a professional musician, but he's always like, well, why don't you just write your own stuff? Why don't you write your own music? And because there's an element of arranging and sometimes improvisation that you talked about that is kind of inherent in just what we do as performers. But it's that kind of leap into writing music formally that feels very scary when you're coming from a place as a performer. So kudos to you for finding that that space, and that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think that we all have within us this musicality, and then we express it in such different ways, whether it's as a performer channeling our own interpretation of other things that have been written down, or as a composer going into this other space. But I think that the two are so intricately linked. I don't think my music would be the same if I hadn't been performing for so long, and if I hadn't been teaching for so long, my performances wouldn't be what they are. It's all so it's so tangled up together, and it all comes to be an important part of what makes music music.
Yes, absolutely. So would you say there are some themes, some specific kinds of inspiration that you draw from in your writing, or is it just all of the things that you've already talked about, as a performer, as an educator? What are your kind of inspirations?
I usually find myself telling stories through my music. I'm not very much of an absolute music person. I'm very programmatic, even if I don't share that program necessarily. When I'm writing about things that I've experienced, or emotions that I'm feeling, or a journey that I've taken, something that has impressed me. So my music always tends to be experiential in that way. I'm usually, it's saying something about something I've experienced, a place that I've been, a memory, or an emotion.
Very cool. Well, I think that's probably a really great segue to talking about this piece I'll be performing of yours, Danse, because it is inspired by a really beautiful piece of artwork, a lithograph by the French artist Henri Fontaine-Latour. And so if you wouldn't mind just talking about how this piece came to be, the inspiration behind it, anything you want to say about the piece.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So in April of 2020, everybody was on lockdown, and I responded to a call for scores from a professor of violin at the University of California in Berkeley. His name is Dan Flanagan. So he is teaching violin, and he's a performer, he's a composer himself, and he has this art collection. So he put up a call for scores saying, does anybody want to write pieces based on things I have in my art collection? And he had this whole collection of pictures posted on his Facebook page. So I said, sure. You know, I didn't know him or anything about the art, really. I just picked a piece that I thought was very moving and I loved it. So I picked this piece and I wrote Danse and sent it to him, and he liked it. And since then, I've been able to share it with the world, and it's really kind of taken on a life of its own. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, well, I love the piece so much. The image, which hopefully I'll be able to share with our audience next weekend.
If you'd like, I could share my screen as I have.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead now. That would be great.
So the picture is a black and white lithograph, and it shows a woman dancing in the middle. And she is just so free and so beautiful in this picture. Here it is.
Thank you.
Sorry, I made that small. There it goes. So this is the lithograph that inspired my writing. I love the freedom of this and the motion here and the way it's all women in this picture. And everybody is just so relaxed and having such a great moment that I just found it so beautiful. And that's what inspired me to write this piece.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's such a beautiful image as well. And what I love about it is that because of the lines, right, that we get from this technique, there's kind of this wispy quality, like a lightness, like a breathiness. And I think you really incorporate that into the music itself. But then there are some shadows, and there's also like a strength to the kind of center dancer's, pose. And you get the juxtaposition of both of those, kind of the very light and airy and also the strong and powerful in your piece, which is really fun as a performer to be able to kind of like bring both of those things out. So I just think you did a really wonderful job of incorporating that kind of programmatic element from this image into the music.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, it's also interesting because I know you're a clarinetist. I also can kind of like imagine this piece written for solo violin almost being played by a solo wind instrument or solo clarinet. Did you have a concept in your mind of your instrument when writing this? Or did you always hear it on violin? Like, I'm interested in how you hear it.
I always heard it on violin. It might sound a little, clarinety just because that's the world that I come from when it comes to writing single line pieces, or pieces that are, for a solo instrument. But I always heard this as a violin piece. I've tried to make it for flute, but it doesn't, how you can take your music software and make it a different instrument. It just doesn't sound right on anything else. In my mind, this is a violin piece and will always be only for violin.
Absolutely. Well, it does work so beautifully. I mean, there's just what you can do with the bow to kind of get that movement and flow. It definitely is idiomatic to the violin for sure. I was just interested in, kind of your initial kind of concept of it, but it's a real joy to play this piece. So it's very perfect for the program that it's going to be a part of. The program that will be centered around works that emulate movement and dance. So it's just perfect for it. And I
I can't wait to hear the rest of the pieces on this program. So I'm so excited to see it.
It is a varied program. There are just a lot of contrast, and within this concept of movement and dance, it's like we have the whole spectrum of what that can actually mean musically. So yeah, great. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share about the piece, or say about? Do you have anything like fun and exciting coming up for you, performing-wise or composing?
I do. I have a couple of pieces coming up in August in Manhattan at the Church of the Transfiguration for solo organ. So there's a prelude and fugue. It's called Prelude and Fugue in the time of COVID. So I have a lot of COVID pieces coming out. That's what I was doing, was writing music. And then this piece will actually be performed again by Dan Flanagan in Manhattan at Carnegie Hall next February. So that's tremendously exciting. So a few good things coming up, always hoping for more, but this is just an amazing start to an amazing point in my life. So thank you very much for playing it.
You're so welcome. And I hope this momentum keeps going for you, because you can feel the soul in your music. So
thank you. Thank you. I'm going to keep working. I'm writing for flute and harp right now, so keep going.
Excellent. Good. Well, thank you so much for chatting. And again, we really look forward to hearing your music, both next Sunday and in the future, for all these exciting performances. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you.